Yeah, Dawei, I think one of the most impressive players I've seen from this tournament, especially because of their take on the Porygon 2 Ursaluna composition. They're running other Pokemon like Annihilate with no beat-up user, Grimmsnarl with screens to just make your Pokemon like Porygon and Ursaluna super bulky, and this very supportive Volcarona set that has Struggle Bug, Will-O-Wisp, as well as Overheat and Rage Powder. And so it's quite different from some of the other Ursaluna teams that we've seen, and the Volcarona and Grimmsnarl combination in particular looked really good in their top 16 set. And we're going to see it match up against Rain.
Ooh, Rain was another one of those archetypes that we were thinking would have a lot of success in the early format, especially looking at how Pelipper is able to enable Swift Swim on Basculegion, all of those water type attacks, as well as Archaludon's Electro Shot. But as we look at Dawei's team too, you know, Rain versus Trick Room, you know, speeds are going to be so important in this matchup.
Yeah, I think what's really fun about the Rain on the opposing side is that mouse hold, but once again, quickly looking at Dawei's team, you've got offense from things like Golden Go as well as the Annihilate and Ursaluna, and you've got support from Grimmsnarl and Volcarona. The Porygon 2 here is Trick Room, of course, able to set up for that Ursaluna. Grimmsnarl's screen support here is so valuable, and Volcarona, defensive here, able to support its teammates. You can lead it with something like the Annihilate, like the Ursaluna, like the Golden Go, and just protect your from your opponent's Pokemon.
And then Porygon 2 is also going to have a bit more of a unique moveset to the Porygon 2 we have seen in the previous rounds of this tournament. Its two attack moves of choice are Tri-Attack and Shadow Ball, rather than something like the Terra Fighting Terra Blast, as well as Ice Beam that we've seen on other Porygon 2.
Exactly. Now, looking over, of course, at Dawei's accomplishments, top 16, top 32 in back-to-back-to-back North American International Championships. That's one of the most difficult tournaments of the entire season, and they've made it not only to day 2, but had deep runs each time there.
Yeah, and a ton of top 32s last season for the regional championships as well. So being able to show up on the international stage as well as once again in a regional championship makes this matchup very exciting. But a little bit of a different story here for Nicholas. Again, first regional championship ever, but with this phenomenal Rain team.
Yeah, Rain was one of the top archetypes coming into this tournament, and this is a pretty classic take on it. A couple things to note. You've got the Mystic Water on the Basculegion. Sometimes people like running Choice Band, but Mystic Water, of course, allows you to click Protect, means that you're not locked into an attack immediately. There also is the offensive mouse hold here with that Population Bomb, the Technician Wide Lens combination. It's kind of funny that in this matchup, we've got mouse hold on one side and Annihilate on the other side. Normally, they're combined with each other, but pay special attention to Basculegion in this matchup. I think with that Water Terra with Wave Crash, it does so much damage even before Pelipper sets up the Rain for it. Dawei's team does not have that many Pokemon that can reliably take Wave Crash, and so for Dawei to respond to it, I think some answers include Dragon Terra Golden Go as well as Dragon Terra Volcarona with that Will-O-Wisp, but Basculegion immediately looks really oppressive, and of course with Mouse Hold, you could even go for Population Bomb onto your own Archaludon to get that stamina boost up very quickly and make Body Press suddenly really powerful and make your Archaludon super defensive.
Maybe that's where Golden Go could really come into play though. As just a Ghost-type Pokemon, you have the opportunity to bypass a lot of those body presses, but you still also have that defensive Terra, as you were saying, to be able to try to go from there. So I'm really interested to see how both of these players are going to approach this. Dawei absolutely has those defensive Terras, but also even has Trick Room to potentially try to finagle the speeds a little bit, maybe get that Swift Swim Basculegion caught off guard. As we head into the first game of this top 4 set, it is going to be that more passive lead of the Grimmsnarl and the Volcarona here for Dawei, as Nicholas goes right all out on the offense with that Pelipper and Basculegion.
Yeah, so Pelipper Basculegion is so oppressive. This is the Terra that we were talking about, right? You can go for the Terra immediately to at least resist this Water Terra Wave Crash. Otherwise, Water Terra Wave Crash does neutral damage to everything on Dawei's team. So Dawei recognizing, I need a defensive option here immediately, but you know, there are a bunch of other questions as to like, where does the Basculegion target right now, right? If the Wave Crash goes into Grimmsnarl, even with Reflect setup, it still takes so much damage, but it's going to be the Water Terra immediately on Basculegion. This is a super safe Terra for Nicholas because there really aren't any super effective attacks from the opposing side once you Water Terra. No Grass, no Electric type attacks.
And it's going to be the Terrestrialization matched on Dawei's side, as we do see that Volcarona go for the Dragon Terra. And so I kind of wonder, though, how much does this leave that Volcarona vulnerable to something like a Hurricane from this Pelipper?
Absolutely, and it's just going to be the Reflect to start off here, so you really want to mitigate Basculegion's damage output. Does it matter if Wave Crash goes into the Grimmsnarl is the first question. Let's see, it is going to be the Wave Crash coming out into the Grimmsnarl, and Grimmsnarl manages to hang on!
That's a really big survival because it can go for something on that next turn, the Struggle Bug to be able to do that spread damage, as well as break the Focus Sash on that Pelipper and drop that special attack. Could also make sure that this Volcarona can stay around just a little bit, but it's not an attack coming out from the Pelipper. It's just going to be that speed control. So for this Basculegion, it's got Tailwind behind it, as well as that Swift Swim.
Yeah, critically going for the Struggle Bug there rather than Will-O-Wisp. What you do there is then, if Basculegion protects or switches out, for example, you can at least reduce Pelipper's damage output. Nicholas goes for the target onto Grimmsnarl, doesn't get baited into Volcarona, but Basculegion does lose a lot of HP. One of the downsides of Wave Crash is that you are going to hurt yourself a lot. And so critical survival there on Grimmsnarl because it'll allow it to set up that second screen, light screen. Basculegion now wants to pivot out because it's just not going to do very much damage into Volcarona. Amoonguss, though, a great pick here because you can potentially heal yourself back up later with Pollen Puff.
As this Grimmsnarl gets a chance to weave in this light screen, though, these attacks coming through from the Pelipper are going to be even more mitigated. The Grimmsnarl is not going to be able to survive that Hurricane, though, despite the light screen and that special attack drop from that Pelipper. The Will-O-Wisp, though, is going to actually avoid the Amoonguss, but you would have loved to hit into that Basculegion if that was what was still on the field.
Yeah, not super critical into the Amoonguss there. You at least, if you're Dawei, have set up your screens. But it's awkward, right? Because, so Amoonguss doesn't feel very intuitive to bring into this matchup because there's a Golden Go in Team Preview, there's a Safety Goggles Annihilate, but it's really good against a lot of the Pokemon Dawei's brought here. So Nicholas identifies, even with some troublesome Pokemon in Team Preview, it's still worth bringing. Now, Ursaluna comes out because the idea is you want to protect so that you get the Flame Orb activated. Once Flame Orb is activated, you at least cannot put the Ursaluna to sleep. Terra, however, has already been committed. You've got to be worried about offensive pressure from the Pelipper, right? So a Rage Powder here, of course, can deter that. What you can do this turn is maybe go for Overheat onto Amoonguss or Struggle Bug, protect with the Ursaluna. It's actually just a Headlong Rush. Hover, though, so for maybe predicting that the Amoonguss is not going to actually Spore into Ursaluna.
But we do see the Pelipper also leave the field, so the big threat of something like the Weather Ball into this Ursaluna has also been avoided, as the Overheat, even in the rain, is going to be able to get half damage down onto the Amoonguss, as Amoonguss goes for the Spore anyway into this Volcarona. Still leaves it open to an attack from this opposing Ursaluna, though, as the Headlong Rush to follow it up picks up the KO onto the Amoonguss.
That Tailwind from Pelipper was really, really nice because it allows the Amoonguss to actually outspeed the Ursaluna, get the Spore off into the Volcarona, and now with no defensive Terra from Ursaluna, you are free to just go for a Wave Crash. Nicholas has not been baited at all this game. Did not go for the Wave Crash early on onto Volcarona, went for the Spore onto Volcarona this time around instead of maybe targeting into the Ursaluna, and now Basculegion is so well positioned, and Archaludon comes in. That's a Dragon-type Pokemon. That's got access to Dragon Pulse. You can now just go for a Wave Crash here into the Ursaluna slot and go for a Dragon Pulse into the Volcarona slot. I think Nicholas has played this game so fantastically, and not going for Will-O-Wisp on turn one of this battle and going for that Struggle Bug instead has definitely punished Dawei.
The Protect first to just make sure that Ursaluna isn't going to go down immediately, and hoping that this Volcarona can take this first turn of sleep and maybe get an early wake up. You are still vulnerable to this Archaludon, though, which goes with the Dragon Pulse. There's a light screen still up, so this Volcarona is able to take that pretty comfortably. Another attack as it bypasses that first turn of sleep.
Oh, this is a really crucial turn. Volcarona has taken a turn of sleep, so if you're able to wake up, you can go for that Rage Powder and redirect that Wave Crash away from the Ursaluna. Then Ursaluna, of course, will be able to launch a very powerful attack off here. So, okay, we're actually seeing an alternative option here, which is saying, you know what? If I manage to burn you, I know I can at least survive the Wave Crash with the Porygon, and your Dragon Pulse isn't KOing me. So, opting to go for a defensive option here, doesn't want to just lose the game immediately with if Volcarona stays asleep.
Oh, you actually tricks the Swift
okay.
Swim. Oh, maybe Porygon 2 can actually get a little bit speedy up in here, but it is going to have to tank this Wave Crash as it is switched into it.
So
That is still so much in the rain with the Water Terra, and no way to actually try to shut down some of this attack, and the Volcarona stays asleep. Got to take another Dragon Pulse. This time around, it's still very, very close, but it does hang on.
Yeah, 2 HP there. I think if Volcarona faints, the game is just immediately over there. But Volcarona hangs on with just a sliver of HP. So now the question is, can you actually set up a Trick Room, right? You've got the Rage Powder support from Volcarona, so Rage Powder into Trick Room can be quite powerful. Of course, on the opposing side, you are staring down the Archaludon, which has access to the body press, but I think Porygon, I would actually expect to survive a body press right now. So I think Dawei's hoping, okay, I just wake up right now, and yeah, you can debate between Trick Room or Recover, but I like Trick Room more to just let Ursaluna can come out. But no, wake up from the Volcarona. It stays asleep for another turn. That allows Nicholas to exert maximum offensive pressure here. That Wave Crash, even without the rain, still gets that knockout onto Porygon.
No Trick Room for Dawei heading into the final couple of turns, and even this Archaludon is going to be able to secure a knockout for itself as it finally gets the job done onto this Volcarona. It's just the Ursaluna at the end, and this Basculegion's going to win that 9 times out of 10. You've got a Pelipper in the back there to set the rain up again.
Yeah, absolutely. So easy switching to Pelipper here, but Nicholas played this phenomenally. I think the key turn was honestly turn 1. The Volcarona had the potential to go for the Dragon Terror and immediately go for Will-O-Wisp onto the Basculegion. Dawei might have thought, well, that's just so obvious. I think you're definitely just going to protect Basculegion. You might consider switching out as well. But Nicholas just says, you know what, I'm just going to attack with the Basculegion. Dawei opting for not going for Will-O-Wisp on that first turn means that this Basculegion is so powerful in the end game, setting up that Tailwind so that Amoonguss can outspeed the Ursaluna, put the Volcarona to sleep as well, preventing redirection support further on. I was talking about how good Basculegion was coming into this game, and boy, did it look good.
It looks so good too, because there's not really a clean way for Dawei to switch up the speeds immediately. Like, you have the Pelipper in, the Swift Swim is always going to make that Basculegion one of the fastest things on the field. And regardless of even if you get the Terra, like, you're still able to get a huge amount of damage down onto something.
Absolutely, yeah. So I think if you're Dawei, the idea was right. I think the Pokemon choices are actually fine. Golden Go feels really scary to bring here because you don't even have something like Choice Specs Thunderbolt, so you could go for Choice Specs Shadow Ball, but the Basculegion can just always Terra, right? There's like nothing to actually punish Terra coming out from Basculegion, so if you're Dawei, you might be okay just going with the same options. Grinstar, Volcarona once again, but this time opt for the Will-O-Wisp onto the Basculegion. However, Nicholas now, I'm sure, is thinking about that as an option, right? So what you could do then is just protect your Basculegion on turn 1 and go for damage onto a Volcarona immediately. But I think burning Basculegion is one of the only ways of actually handling it here, because even with Reflect setup, it's still so difficult. Dawei also didn't manage to set up Trick Room in that game, so that's another approach that they could take.
Yeah, just lead the Porygon 2, maybe even, knowing that you might be able to take a hit from the Basculegion. We saw how much it was able to do with the Terra Water in the rain and the Wave Crash. It survived, but can you actually pair something, if you're on Nicholas's side, to actually just finish off the Porygon 2 before it's able to get that Trick Room set up?
Yeah, it's tough. I think like the main calc I'm curious about is if you lead Pelipper Basculegion on Nicholas's side and Dawei goes Grimmsnarl or Porygon 2, can the Porygon 2 survive a Water Terra Wave Crash if Reflect is set up? If that's the case, you at least get your Trick Room up, but oh, it's going to be a mix-up here. No Basculegion. Incineroar is out on the field instead, and there is the Porygon 2.
Okay, so the Porygon 2 is in a much better position in this spot because you are able to just get this Trick Room set up. You are not in any threat of actually getting knocked out before you actually are able to get it up and going, but the Drizzle getting traced there is very funny.
Yeah, so this is interesting because Incineroar does have the fake out into Porygon. A Porygon here is Ghost Terra, but would you really want to Ghost Terra solely to get around the fake out? We also see a key Pokemon in the back. It's going to be Golden Gold this time around, so offering a little bit more offense. I think Dragon Terra here generally is the more consistent option because you just want to have something that immediately resists the water type attack from all the opposing side, right? So now the question is, where do you go from here? Incineroar caught in a kind of awkward spot. You're not really doing that much damage. You can't really fake out into a Volcarona and flinch it, of course, because of that Covert Cloak as well. But of course, you could fake out into a Porygon 2, deny it an attack. Pelipper here could go for a Hurricane, a Weather Ball into Volcarona just to get some damage on the board immediately, force a Terra out.
Terastallization onto the Volcarona first, though, to kick off this game. And so the Dragon Terra will be good moving forward. If the Basculegion is in the back, which I feel like we have to assume that Nicholas is going to have, then Volcarona is still around to at least be able to get some damage down in the process, and also hope that it will be up and running for something like a Will-O-Wisp in the future. As the Focus Sash gets broken onto this Pelipper once again, but even more importantly, drops the special attack like it did in that game number 1. With the Weather Ball 2, take a look at how well this Dragon Terra is going to help this Volcarona stay up. It does have the take a parting shot, though. So what's going to be coming into that Incineroar slot?
Yeah, I mean, our Chowdon right now, definitely a decent switch in. I think Basculegion, you kind of want to wait until you knock out the Volcarona. Once Volcarona faints, suddenly there's nothing that resists water-type damage, but it's actually going to be the Amoonguss. And so, obviously, by going with the Incineroar this time around, you can only bring one of the Basculegion or the Archaludon, given Amoonguss coming out here. And Tri-Attack does get the burn onto Pelipper, so that's a lot of damage.
Yeah, I mean, that is something else to maybe keep in mind for this game, is that there is a 20% chance to burn, freeze, or paralyze with Tri-Attack. And so the burn here maybe gives a little bit more hope to Dawei to see this Basculegion in the future and maybe get a burn that way.
Yeah, and there's Golden Goal this time around, which is a really nice response in particular against Amoonguss. So if you're able to predict correctly where Amoonguss is going to target this turn, you could also actually go for the side Will-O-Wisp to burn your own Porygon 2, preventing it from getting spored. So, okay,
no
we
way.
see the hover here. I like that a lot. Oh, and Trick Room. So the idea is, okay, let me just set up Trick Room right now, then I can get my Ursaluna out afterwards. Pelipper is going to switch out. So, will the Will-O-Wisp connect on the own Porygon 2? This is a very crucial turn right now.
If it does, this is going to put Dawei into a very good position. Incineroar comes in first, though, to get the Intimidate drops. And the
Will-O-Wisp, okay!
Oh,
it does connect! Porygon 2 is burnt. It will now no longer be able to put to sleep by Amoonguss, and the Amoonguss Spore goes into Porygon 2. Trick Room is now set up, but if you're Dawei, you still need to get your Ursaluna out safely. If you switch it in on an Amoonguss Spore, it will just get put to sleep. So how do you get it in right now is the main question, but Trick Room at least is set up. Golden Goal, though, that is something that does not have to worry about Spore from the Amoonguss. And whoo, I like that. Dawei is playing so confidently, just going for that double switch lock-in immediately.
This is something that could really throw Nicholas off his game already. After you are feeling the Spore, you're thinking, how do I actually get through these Trick Room turns now? As we see this double switch come through from Dawei. So both of the final two Pokemon revealed in this game right away. You've got the Ursaluna as well as the Golden Go. If you get this right as well, it's going to be the Spore into the Ursaluna, not the Golden Goat!
What a play! What is Incineroar going for? It's knockoff as well. Goodbye to your Flame Orb. That is one sad Ursaluna, and this is what makes Ursaluna hard to use. You have to get it in safely, and Dawei was in no position, had to make a call, and gets it. The double up on Amoonguss safe though, right? Even if Porygon stays in, you still eat up the knockoff, and Amoonguss doesn't lose that much value, right? It's not like Volcarona is applying that much pressure anyway, but by going for that play, Nicholas gets probably even more than he initially thought he would really get out of that turn. So what a phenomenal play. Nicholas has been playing so well. Dawei making such a cool play as well. Golden Go now at least is out on the field, but you have to worry about Incineroar just hitting you with a knockoff.
You do, because you also need to consider that your terrestrialization is already used.
Yeah.
You don't have that Dragon Terra available to you, and you're also choice spec, so you have to lock into something right away. Amoonguss safely going for another Spore here, not under any threat of getting knocked out by either of these Pokemon right now, as Ursaluna takes its mandatory turn of sleep, and Golden Go has to eat the knockoff. It's going to be going down already to just a sliver of HP, as it locks into the Power Gem. Now that this choice specs is gone, it's actually not going to be enough damage for this Incineroar to get finished off, but you could also change up your move if you actually have an opportunity to with Golden Go.
Yeah, this is so tough. That Spore, by the way, just to cover for Ursaluna potentially switching out into the Volcarona specifically. The Golden Go is caught in a really awkward spot. That slot will just get knocked out by an attack at this point, right? And Ursaluna is so sad because not only did it switch in, it lost its Flame Orb, and so you don't even have the Guts activation anymore. So its damage output into Amoonguss is not going to be that great. I like the idea behind this play, though. Get the Golden out safely, wait until Trick Room is stalled out, and then just try to get some damage off with the Earthquake right now. Porygon 2 is going to switch back in, gonna get a Trace off. It's gonna be the Regenerator, okay? It's always fun to see what traces. And the side Pollen Puff here, just such a safe play to go for. Heal the Incineroar nearly back up to full HP now.
I mean, this Earthquake, even if it goes off into the Amoonguss, it's not going to be able to eliminate that right away. And this Porygon 2 is going to have to take this knockoff, and it removes the Eviolite now, a play that you were calling out. So this Porygon 2 is a little bit more vulnerable to these special attacks.
Yeah, the main thing is right now Incineroar, Amoonguss, like, they're not exerting the most amount of offensive pressure, but Nicholas is probably okay with how this game state has played out, right? Dawei's strategy was to try to set up Trick Room, try to bring out these really powerful attackers under Trick Room. Nicholas is content just getting damage off across the board. because you're setting yourself up for an endgame where Basket Legion comes in, the rain is set up, you water Terra, and you click Wave Crash into everything. So right now, Dawei is in a really, really tough spot. Porygon at least is pretty bulky, right? So it can heal back a lot of the damage that's been taken right now. Ursaluna has taken a couple of turns of sleep as well. Gonna go for the Facade there, so potentially reading that Incineroar is gonna switch into Pelipper right now.
You gotta knock out something. You're running out of Trick Room turns, and you're also running out of HP and Pokemon. As Amoonguss goes for the Rage Powder, it will keep this Incineroar safe on this next turn, but we've gotta see the Wake Up, and it's still gonna be asleep. Ursaluna, this is not the time to be taking a nap or this Flare Blitz.
Yeah, it was already an uphill battle for Dawei, but for it to stay asleep for as long as it has made it even more difficult. We, of course, saw the Facade locked in, so it wouldn't have really done very much damage, and this Golden Goal losing the choice specs as well. I mean, like, the Golden Goal and Ursaluna on this team, when their damage output is reduced, it just feels so sad because they really aim to pick up these big one-hit knockouts. And Nicholas, you know, Incineroar Amoonguss, not exactly meant to be the most offensive combination, but he is making it look so strong. We've seen so many cool plays throughout the course of this game, but, you know, Dawei does not have the ability to heal up with Pokemon like Ursaluna, with the Volcarona, with this Golden Goal. There's no Amoonguss on Dawei's end. You can't self-Pollen Puff here, and so caught in a really tough spot right now. I think the idea is, yeah, let me at least get Porygon 2 in, let me try to set up Trick Room again, then let me get Ursaluna out under Trick Room, but it feels pretty inevitable right now. I think Nicholas is in such a huge advantage.
Oh, I mean, you trace the Regenerator again, I guess, if that ends up helping in the future. But Amoonguss goes for Rage Powder yet again. This Golden Go is just going to struggle a lot to try to get some damage down, even though the Rage Powder, like, look at how sad that Make It Rain is of all things. And this Incineroar still gets a chance to actually go for damage. It goes into the Porygon too, though, but look at how offensive this Incineroar is. We've gone back to 2 attacks on this Incineroar, and they both look amazing.
Yeah, Flare Blitz, really big deal. I know that seems really standard on Incineroar, but this is a rain team, right? So a lot of times people would think, well, you know, I'm going to set up the rain so often, I'm not actually going to run Flare Blitz, but it's a really crucial move to have here because it allows you to actually deal so much more damage. If you were the Incineroar set without Flare Blitz, then you're kind of just stuck awkwardly clicking knockoff. Right now, Nicholas isn't even bringing out what I think is the most powerful Pokemon in Basket Legion. He's saying, you know what? You have to knock me out first, and then I'll just bring it out. I don't want to switch something in carelessly, and I think that's really smart, recognizing, hey, the duel that I have on the field right now is already applying so much offensive pressure. So Dawei keeps making these switches, but you're just losing more and more HP, which makes this so difficult.
It adds up over time, and I think what's also really tough about this Golden Go is you've taken a special attack drop now as well.
Yeah.
Not only do you have your choice specs gone, but you also just use Make It Rain, which dropped your special attack. And so is there really a way for you to actually knock out this Incineroar? You saw Dawei actually remove the Porygon 2 just to make sure it's not going to get knocked out to another Flare Blitz, and look again at how much sadder these Make It Rains look time and time again.
And the Citrus Berry hasn't even been consumed until now, so Amoonguss just heals all the way back as well. Incineroar happy to just keep launching damage. It's going to be knockoff. Golden Go finally is eliminated. So if you're Dawei, at least you now have Porygon and Volcarona out on the field next to each other, right? So you can aim goal to set up a second Trick Room. The thing is just, even once Ursaluna wakes up, are you able to pick up one-hit knockouts with it, right? Does a Headlong Rush under Trick Room, for example, actually get the KO into the Basket Legion? The Basket Legion also has Aqua Jet, right? So if you knock out this Volcarona, well, then Basket Legion doesn't care about Trick Room being set up. So Volcarona traces the Regenerator once again.
Well, I mean, it helped out. Look at that. Porygon 2 has actually recovered some of its HP thanks to tracing that ability, and would be able to take another Flare Blitz. But we are now going to see this Incineroar finally leave the field, and it is going to be the Pelipper that takes its place. Not a bad idea to set the rain in case you are going to see something like an overheat come through from this Volcarona. Yep,
Amoonguss is going to switch out here as well, so if there was any turn for Dawei to have a big turn, it's actually not even Basket Legion in the back. It's going to be Archaludon. Okay, so Nicholas saying, you know what, I think you're going to counter Basket Legion a little bit harder this time around, but Archaludon's such a good final Pokemon to have here. Yes, you drop its special attack, but how do you deal enough damage to KO it right now? Especially as stamina boosts continue to stack up as well. Tri-Attack comes out, hoping for a status condition. Do we see one here? It's a critical hit and a stamina boost, but no status condition.
Well, I was holding on because I was expecting maybe something would end up coming through there. But now you've also given this Archaludon 2 stamina boosts. So where did these body presses start to actually stack up in the grand scheme of the damage on Nicholas's side?
Yeah, this game definitely doesn't feel over. Will-O-Wisp onto Archaludon will, of course, reduce the damage of body press. It does connect.
Hit.
Yeah, and so maybe there is a world in which Ursaluna can put in some work under Trick Room. We're still not at the Trick Room part of the game yet. Dragon Pulse will still do reasonable damage. Here's a Weather Ball also going out into the Porygon slot. Ooh, that's a lot of damage. A double up might just KO it. There's body press.
There's no Eviolite.
Yep, that's out of the way. So Dawei down to their final 2 Pokemon, and they weren't able to set up Trick Room. There is still this sleeping Ursaluna in the back as well. Pelipper is going to finally faint from the burn, but now you get a free switch into that Incineroar.
So Incineroar gets an Intimidate drop onto this Ursaluna that also doesn't have its guts activated because the Flame Orb got knocked off. It gets a chance to wake up, I think, on this turn because it's taken so many turns of sleep. But how is this Volcarona actually going to be able to do the job?
Yeah, it's tough. I think the main question here is, if you're Dawei, do you try to, say, Protect maybe, and then go for another Struggle Bug, knock out the Amoonguss, then try to get like an Overheat? I think you need to go for the Protect here. So, yeah, Protect Struggle Bug is, I think, the only play that would keep Dawei in this. If you're Nicholas, you might be content still just going for the safe Fake Out onto the Ursaluna slot and then go for a Dragon Pulse onto Volcarona, for example. You could also gamble a little bit and just, you know, double up onto the Ursaluna slot. But either way, I think Nicholas in a really commanding position, and I love the decision to drop the Basculegion, recognizing this was really good, but I don't think I'm going to get away with it again. Incineroar actually even pivots out here, going to bring out that Amoonguss. Of course, now so healthy thanks to Regenerator.
Yeah, Ursaluna is going to wake up. Okay, so finally we get a chance to see this Ursaluna do something in this game number 2, but it's just the Protect. And with the Struggle Bug just continuing to chip away at both of these Pokemon, Amoonguss and Archaludon, they don't really mind that. Archaludon, though, it is going to start to really feel the hurt of all these Struggle Bugs, though. That is -3 now for its special attack, and it is burned. So these body presses, even with the +3 stamina, not going to be that impactful.
Yeah, Nicholas kind of covering for all options there, basically. I think the one scary thing could have been if the Volcarona had just gone for a Rage Powder, and then maybe you just headlong rush immediately into the Archaludon. But the reality is a non-Guts boosted Ursaluna was already kind of sad, and now we're staring down a +3 defense Archaludon. So I think Dawei here, they want any chance of winning this game, needs a critical hit right now from the Ursaluna.
Rage Powder first, so we'll see if that critical hit can come through as the Archaludon goes for the body press, and this
so much
Volcarona
damage
does do a lot of tanking there, but you see this Amoonguss just not a critical hit, not going to end up being the KO either, and even still, this Amoonguss gets a chance to re-heal this Archaludon with Pollen Puff.
Yeah, and even with the burn on Archaludon, it's putting in so much work. Being able to soak up these defense boosts from that Struggle Bug, so valuable. If you're Nicholas now, you could just switch the Amoonguss back out into Incineroar, go for another body press, and so I was thinking maybe you go for the headlong rush and just try to crit the Archaludon right here and then. Instead, the damage goes into Amoonguss, and so Archaludon here now sitting so healthy. You can go for Rage Powder once again, but I think Body Press might just get the knockout in return. It's doing so much damage even with that burn thanks to all of those boosts. So yeah, here's the Rage Powder play. Okay, opting for potentially the Overheat here instead. Of course, if you go for Overheat, the risk is Archaludon just clicking Body Press into the Ursaluna slot and getting KO'd there.
But you gotta risk it at this point because Dawei is several steps behind in this game.
Oh, okay.
Wait.
The side Will-O-Wisp.
Oh, it could just give the Guts boost that way.
Yeah, but the question is, how much does that matter? And first of all, like, does the Archaludon just body press into the Ursaluna slot? I like the idea here, but I don't know if that's enough. Let's see, though.
That's a second Intimidate drop onto this Ursaluna, though, as the Will-O-Wisp is able to connect onto the Ursaluna. So what does this Archaludon actually do on this turn? It's going to be a body press into the Volcarona, and it survives with the headlong rush to go into the Archaludon. It's still so little with all of the stamina boosts.
Yeah, it was, I think this endgame pretty much was always you need to get a critical hit. The Archaludon just has too many defense boosts, but now it's just a fake out into a body press, and it should be a double KO. So that was cool. The side Will-O-Wisp in this game were awesome. I think what was the absolute game-defining turn for me in this match, though, was the Ursaluna trying to switch in and getting doubled up with the knockoff and the Spore. If the Porygon had stayed in and then the other slot switched into Ursaluna, I think there may have been a decent chance for Dawei, but Dawei just had to play so defensively, never really really had that much offense, and that's why Amoonguss was so good in this matchup, despite there being so many Amoonguss counters seemingly, with Golden Goal, with Safety Goggles Annihilate, with Flame Orb Ursaluna.
Dawei got so close of being able to make it to the finals, but it's gonna be the newcomer, Nicholas Morales, with that final KO onto Ursaluna, making it to the finals of the Baltimore Regional Championships.
I love that Nicholas decided, you know what, Basket Legion was so good for me in the first game, but you have an answer to it. You didn't go for it in that game one, but you definitely see it, which is just going immediately for Will-O-Wisp. But Nicholas said, well, I don't want to just leave Basket Legion and be forced to protect or switch out. So adapting and then going with the Archaludon game mode. Archaludon was such an immaculate Pokemon to close out this set. I think really, really just perfect play from him throughout both games. And I wonder how different all of this would look if just in game one, turn one, we saw Will-O-Wisp instead of a Struggle Bug go out into the Basket Legion. But Nicholas recognizes, you know what, I'm going to lead into one of my other game modes, goes with the Incineroar. Incineroar plus Amoonguss, actually just so impressive. This has been a combination that's been so strong in VGC for so many years, and it continues to be just as good.
Oh man, even just the Archaludon being able to go for these Dragon Pulses, I think this has been such a nice move change to see on an Archaludon, because otherwise you're running Draco Meteor, you have a chance to miss, and Dragon Pulse is just such consistent damage, especially when you see 2 Dragon Terras on Dawei's team.
Yeah, and I think Nicholas always just made really consistent plays across the board. I like the patience to stay in with the Incineroar and Amoonguss and keep Dawei guessing, basically. Once again, this duel was able to just do so much damage, and Dawei just never really had anything that exerted too much offensive pressure. I think Ursaluna was the best bet, but as soon as it got put to sleep and lost its Flame Orb, it was going to be such a big uphill battle. And the reality is that there just was not very much for this Archaludon, right? Now, Ursaluna normally pretty good into Archaludon, but once you get a couple stamina boosts, I mean, we saw, yeah, it was burnt, and it still did like 25–30% of damage.
Yeah, it was a lot. I think this was just a fantastic display, though, by Nicholas, and in his very first regional, he is going to be making it to the finals, where he has to face one of the biggest and strongest veterans of the game, Paul Chua, looking to catch back up in regional championship title wins to Wolf Glick, who is leading the charge right now.
Yeah, Paul's at 6 victories in the Masters division alone. Paul, of course, was also a phenomenal player in the Seniors division, which is where he started. And so this is going to be such an exciting finals. Paul made it to the finals of a regional championship in the last season as well, over in Toronto, losing to Chupa Cross in a really, really, really close set. And we've seen some crazy games from both players already throughout the course of this tournament. Of course, Nicholas winning just by a sliver of HP in that top 8 match, and Paul, of course, winning against Z in a very intense top 8 set as well, where it felt like he was behind, especially in, midway through game 2 before a critical Moonblast special attack drop allowed his King Gambit to get an attack boost and just go from there.
30% of the time it works 100% of the time, but this just makes me so excited to see the conclusion of the Baltimore Regional Championships. We're gonna go ahead and let our players get ready for the finals and let them take a little bit of a short break. So we will see you guys on the other side.